Welcome to the SEO Insider with your host, Seth Price, founder of BluShark, taking you inside the world of legal marketing and all things digital.
Welcome, everyone. We got Jeremy from CoolFire. It is awesome to have you. We are here on the SEO Insider, and I got to say, got to meet you in Miami at National Trial Lawyers, and blown away. Like, you never know who you're talking to in this world, right? So this guy comes off mild-mannered guy, hear about his story, created videos and animations for Nickelodeon, did some stuff with Spielberg, all like the pie in the sky stuff, right? How does all this greatness relate to lawyers? And then start realizing, as you start to see some of these, the Brown and Crouppen guys and the Mayo people and these people whose work I love online, realizing I'm looking at the mastermind behind it. So we had to have Jeremy on. Welcome, Jeremy.
Well, I appreciate it, Seth, and it's awesome to be here, having checked out some other episodes. I've got imposter syndrome, but you know what? I'm fired up to talk about video, that's for sure, and share some insights that folks might not be doing.
Well, look, when it comes to somebody who went from, because we see a lot of people talk about what they've done before they did legal video, but like you got some serious chops here. I mean, like you worked within like the establishment, we'll call it, that where you've done what I call real stuff. I say that like lovingly as a lawyer, like our little protected world is this other piece, which is really hard to make lawyers interesting, but somehow you have sort of, I think, cracked the code as well as anyone on how you make lawyers interesting. Talk to us a little bit about that, because you can SEO everything you want, you can do paid search, but if you get if you get media from people actually enjoying the stuff rather than having to pay to get it in front of people, that's pretty cool.
Who knew, huh? And that is exactly it, Seth. Why I think we are some of the best in class at law firm content is because we make content that doesn't just compete with other law firm content. We make content that competes with all content. Attention span is the most valued currency today, is it not? So how do we turn this in from, have to watch to want to watch content? So all I did, Seth, to answer your question is just kind of connect the dots, right? Working as a, certified geek for World Events Productions back in the day. I mean, I grew up making zombie movies in the backyard with 2 VHS, editing Robert Rodriguez style, putting in the Street Fighter II Super Nintendo sound effects as a child of the 80s for it, and then really kept the filmmaking train going, transitioned that into animation for Nickelodeon, for Voltron, Defender of the Universe, which actually comes from St. Louis. People don't realize that, which is a giant anime mecha show. And had a blast doing that, getting to go to Comic-Cons, but always knew the guys at CoolFire, Jeff Keane, who started CoolFire over 20 years ago. And they had been creating global national campaigns for Fortune 500 companies, TV commercials. Steve Lubert came on board and has sold 19 television cable series, starting with things like Fast and Loud on Discovery, shows on HGTV, shows on Discovery Channel. So really, Seth, what we've done is taken those storytelling elements, that production execution, and applied it to law firms. And we produce lawyers and partners the same way we produce television stars, and really make, you said it, that intangible star power that comes across. We got to get folks away from the green screen, step out beyond, and show those values that everybody talks about in action. Lots of folks like to talk about the same things, and it all just comes across as a sea of sameness. So that's really what we're counting on. And I know, at BluShark, you guys talk about sophisticated content. We just want to make stuff that blows other law firm content away, but also check out those minutes watched on the back end, right? Which is one of our metrics that we're looking for. Beyond impressions, let's talk about time spent. Let's talk about someone like Ed Herman with Brown and Crouppen, who really gave us our gateway. He was our gateway drug into the worlds of law firm. As you know, he has an awesome personality, very engaging guy. When he walked in the office, we were doing a pizza commercial, obviously with Terry Crouppen, who's an institution here at Brown and Crouppen in St. Louis. But I didn't know who this Ed guy was. And I said, this guy's like Paul Giamatti, meets, Curb Your Enthusiasm, right?
That's exactly it.
That's exactly it, right? And Larry David, exactly.
His look, and all of a sudden it just pops out. Look, everybody now
has turned into a brand.
Right? No, absolutely. But when you see that, right, you see him do the bathroom stuff and all. it sounds cool, but there's a lot going on. Let's make this a little more granular. A lot of the people listening to the show on the lawyer side, right? Because we have both lawyers and digital marketers, but whether either one, before they get to a CoolFire, it'd be great if everybody just strokes a check and says, hey, Jeremy, go do this for me. We have a lot of people right now that are online creating, looking at TikTok short, as long as that doesn't get banned, maybe this won't age well, but like, whether it's going to be Instagram Reels, whether it's YouTube Shorts, people are looking at ways to engage with the audience. That's out of the box. I mean, lawyers are now out of the box, meaning people are doing that. What are some of the techniques you think people could do when they start to avoid the series of videos they're going to look at and say, yeah, this sucks and I don't want to use it? Like, what are your starting points where somebody who doesn't want to do Me Too, they don't want to stand in front of a green screen and say, have you been hurt? Or these are the accidents you could make, these are the accidents or the things that people you should avoid. What are the things that people should be looking at if they want to build a story, a something more sticky online? Where do you begin?
Right. And, we're pro video, and whether that's working with CoolFire or if you have resources and you can start to do some of this stuff in-house, we're just sharing philosophies here and things that have worked and what haven't worked. We really approach things, Seth, with like that bite snack meal strategy in mind. The phrase I use all the time is we're going to use all the buffalo. So starting with at the minimum, right? Mobile phone videos, we talk about production value, but who's to say what is production value? I love something that looks slick and cable television ready. And I believe that production quality of the production itself, of the lighting, the sound, everything, the editing, CoolFire is very good at finishing and polishing and giving it that premium level. But that's not to say there isn't a place for the mobile phone, the consistency of that that's out there. And we've seen folks doing a lot of great stuff from, Mike Morris, who's crushing TikTok, to husband, wife. There's a dog. I was looking for that dog. Glad the dog has come on board. Now I feel like we can start the show.
Exactly.
So we're looking at things like, okay, let's start from the baseline. At the baseline minimum, think about frequently asked questions. Go to things like trial lawyers conventions, listen to these folks, or CEO lawyer. And at the very minimal, as you said on the podcast, I think it was Dennis Yu, right? Grab a young person who knows these things, record, get consistency out there, build, measure, pivot. We think there's an area to play in beyond that. We think a lot of folks are too busy being lawyers, right? And have businesses to attend to. So we are running on a level that is a bit more top shelf creative. It's not for everyone, but we apply things that make it look like a cable television series. But I'll share some tips on some ways in that I think a lot of things beyond that green screen, which there's a place for that in repetition. But I want to talk about minutes watched and being able to hook viewers in, right, and keep them interested. One of the shows we've done for BCTV is 3 Lawyers Eating Sandwiches, which, spoiler, it's about 3 lawyers eating sandwiches. But what's amazing, Seth, is when we started that show a couple of years ago, we had no idea that food would be such a way into community, which would be such a way into connections. And when, a bigger law firm, let's say it rhymes with Morgan & Morgan, comes into town, you've fortified yourself and you've really shown that you are the community there, and that food, and starting with that universal truth. So my tip to firms out there is really look at, what are you passionate about? Food, is a great place because everyone likes food, a lot of foodies out there, but what a great place to start where you're interviewing the businesses. The restaurants we profile on 3 Lawyers, their businesses spiked 30% because they put promotion behind this. And so 3 Lawyers Eating Sandwiches now has clients coming on, now has special guests and athletes coming on, where you can have a client conversation and show those things. We talk about values in action around here. Mike Morris does a great job. We don't produce for Mike Morris, but he does a great job of showing his backpack campaign and things. So it's one thing to talk about the things. It's another thing to show it in action. So what we've discovered, and with Brown and Croup, and I didn't expect this kung fu move at the start, was then take the best of digital content, and because it looks so good and CoolFire's produced it, we create a 30-minute cut of that. And for those firms out there that, buy a lot of TV, there are time slots out there on television, which is still, I'm a digital guy like you, but television is still that, powerful medium. And when it's all working together, Hakuna Matata, we put that television 30-minute cut on TV. I know that's crazy, but it becomes an infomercial that you actually want to watch. And it's not one of those dry news type things. So apologies to my friends at CAMG, but that's some hard news. There's a place for that. But it becomes, kind of late night TV, early morning, daytime. So creating that 30-minute long form really creates a connection. And you see that everywhere I go with Ed Herman. In the time it took, a couple years of him on digital, he has an intangible star power and connection out there with folks. But what Ed does, it's so critical too, and this would be my next tip, is to make sure you're responding to comments. And whether that's delegated to someone on your team, but you're missing out on those digital referrals.
Right? It's part of the conversation.
It's part of the conversation. Don't make that's what's
you
unique
reply, that
about
person's
these
a fan
platforms.
for life.
Oh, 100%. And then you combine that too with some live event appearances. So we're just spitballing an architecture for what a firm can do. So taking a food series and then saying, hey, we're going to be live at this, food truck thing. And by the way, when you come there, ask some legal questions. And now you're making a final connection. We're really trying to scale. Yeah.
But let me ask you this. So this is the cynical side, which again, look, when you get over the hump, Brown & Crouppen clearly has done that, right? They're at the point where, how much of, when you look at this I'm going to start with this, which is it's one thing to get eyeballs, but it's another thing to connect that to an injury lawyer. And that has always been sort of the back and forth, right? That it's amazing.
Yes.
That what you don't want is somebody reaching out and saying, oh yeah, you're that fun lawyer guy. But when they got injured, they called the guy on TV that says, if you're injured, call me. And it's that I struggle with this because my firm happens to do more than Price Benowitz does more than one area of law, which is good. And that you can help more people. But what you don't want is the person with the tractor trailer crash saying, oh yeah, I thought you did DUIs, and not going to you. So how do you take the personality, which clearly you've been able to do, right? And I've seen it on a micro level. I love what Ken Levinson does out of Chicago, just very casually on Facebook, doing Italian food, right? Or doing all food, going from restaurant to restaurant. It's been great organically for a great referral shop. How do you then make the leap? There I get it, because he's not saying refer to me. He's basically saying, hey, you know me from AAJ. I speak at all these things. If you're going to refer, if you're going to do a monster case, put me in the mix because I'm top of mind. That's all it's being done. How do you make the jump from top of mind / entertainment to, hey, if you have a case, I'm not just some joker who's eating food, but I'm the one who's going to be able to get you money?
You have to never let the law come second place in that, weaving it in creatively. No one wants to watch commercials, and especially no one wants to watch law firm commercials. No offense, but they're not on the top of the Maslow hierarchy of needs of entertainment. So strategically, what we do on, say, an Ed series, and we struggle, I'd push Ed, believe me, for a lot of this stuff, is weave in that commercial. When you're doing the Home Alone video where you're talking about how members of the internet jury, Kevin is actually the villain of Home Alone in Ed versus the movies. We talk about Joe Pesci falling. By the way, Brown & Crouppen handles slip and fall cases, so that looked like a nasty fall. Always weaving it in, right? And then on my 30-minute cut for television, we use the commercials in more serious calls to action, direct response as the interstitials in between. We put them in as mid-rolls. We've hypnotized you into watching something, but then we're reminding you that we're badass lawyers. And it works the other way too. We've got some firms we're working with that are more serious. So we're going to apply our true crime shows that we've done for Roku, our storytelling techniques that with cold opens and innovative bumper, those things that are very unique to CoolFire and things we do every day very easily that might be harder for some. But we've got some ideas around how do you make, I'm working with a lawyer, John Fitch, and he does some serious cases. He is a capital L lawyer. It is him. As I keep joking with him, I say, John, there's no bait and switch when you call John Fitch. And he's like, I hate it. We're not doing that. So he is a serious guy. And so we're talking about how do you talk about more difficult subjects in an engaging way? So it's weaving it in. It's making sure you never lose that. And you're doing all the things you were already doing. You are running.
But do you
What's
lose
that?
To quote my kids, there's a cringe element. Right. And look, some people own it and they're good, but it's one thing to say, hey, I'm going to weave it in, but are you going from that fun, easygoing to making sure that you're not, that you're not just throwing that out there. Oh, by the way, have you that's not nothing. Figuring out how to balance it.
Right.
So you're not losing the coolness while at the same time.
Correct. Right. And that's when you do work with a CoolFire, because cool is in our name. And you're so right. And your kids are so right. There is a balance, right? And if you tip the scale one way or another, you've lost them. And that's what we like to do when we're working with a, McDivitt. We help start their shows, Family Style and Single Dad's Guide to Life. So we really drilled down on the personalities, what made the firm unique, and how can we showcase this in a way that is engaging and humanizes folks and through humor, but that isn't always the case for all the folks we work with. Michael DeMeo out of North Carolina, whose series just went public there, he's a single dad to 5 kids. I don't know why you wouldn't let us call it Cinco de Mayo. I thought that was a great title.
That's awesome.
I know, right? Michael
you're still
a
like
live guy. Yeah. And it's awesome. You got to know, everyone knows him on the billboards, but in the series, you get to know him and his mother, and you get to know how he was this self-made guy. Otherwise you'd be like, oh, this guy's a badass, intense lawyer, but it humanizes that side. So we're saying, keep running what you're running, all those direct response, but this is something that integrates and pairs well with, and then helps folks just targeting wise, lead me in with some candy, some top line stuff. Now get in my, kill box here. Now I'm going to hit you with more retargeting things, but it's really just that connection and what we're looking for. And I think for your kids, I'm not even sure they're going to watch lawyer content unless it is some way in that's interesting, because you've got to future proof.
I was just using them for the concept of, and look, they're on YouTube all the time. So if Morgan buys all inventory, they know who the YouTube lawyers are. It just, what I was trying to get at was just the idea of how do you go from being the cool guy while then throwing the stuff out there. One of my favorites, Rick Harris out of Vegas. They do a long form, he has one of his top marketing women. They do a show, which really just has him at the beginning and end. They create, even before you join this world, where it's awesome Vegas content, different sort of tourist things outside the mainstream, cool experiences, and just they literally brought to you by. And one of the things that I struggle with is, have you seen a difference between people that have been on TV for a while and have a brand versus those that might be like, I'm a digital player, right? And a lot of people watching digital players where they don't have a regional brand, so that, is there a competitive advantage if you have the brand out there already, or is it something where that person's already looked at as a lawyer and you're just coming out of nowhere as a personality? Like, talk to me about that.
Yeah, and as I'll quote Ed Herman from LitaQuest, as he asked, what was it, Yehuda from Morgan & Morgan, what would be your advice for firms that don't have $150 million in marketing? And that is, this can be an excellent way, and you're a digital proponent as well, but it doesn't have to be my food show example, right? Daryl Isaacs found his niche on TikTok with croutons, and that was his kind of breakout thing. Doesn't necessarily have to be something where you're, there. You could bring some of the restaurants in, but just saying, getting out there in the community, doing something, showing folks what makes you unique. What are you passionate about? We talk to lawyers who are into exercise and fitness. What is that hobby or interest that you can show? Maybe even pairing yourself up with a dynamic person inside the firm. Every firm has what I call like insider influencers. If you're not wanting, hey, but let's put a team member, let's pair me up, and let's mitigate some of the weaknesses and showcase some of the strength. So it's all a custom formula. There's no rinse and repeat for all of these folks. But I think, if you're not on TV and you're not buying up a lot of those, digital is an awesome way to come underneath, future-proof. And you're seeing that, right? You're seeing that with the younger firms who do just organically understand the game and are putting it out there. So I'm telling the legacy folks who do have the big swings, like, you need to fortify. And a lot of these folks have these transitions to, sons or daughters that are coming in. This is a great way to protect the legacy and introduce to folks, right? As one fades from the billboard, the other comes up, and be the digital face of that firm. So lots of different ways, but never losing the law in all of this is so key and critical. Tim Miley is another example out of West Virginia. And Tim is a former Speaker of the House, politician, brilliant guy, right? He's not Ed Herman. He will tell you himself, he's not going to be this comedian on set, but we let him riff on things he's passionate about, right? One of his big fears is a branch falling on him. So we came up with the series Tiger Talks based on his mascot, it's the tiger, and he flies in and we just crush content all day, get Tiger Talk episodes in the can. I have a professional comedian sitting right next to me who's throwing out different jokes. He's put some different jokes on the teleprompter, which is more of just an outline for Tim to riff on the unexpected legal consequences of, vaping. But the one that he did was a breakout, was our first episode on top 5 motorcycle myths. Him and his wife, Susan, are motorcycle writers. They live this community, and he really wants to fortify his position on the motorcycle law firm. So he really leaned into that and spoke up for a tribe. And that tribe in return responded by sharing. Now he's getting folks coming up to him. They're all sharing the Facebook video, which Facebook's a great place for that engagement, that sharing. YouTube is definitely more that lean back. You're in that mood to watch something long form. But if you do the right piece of content, and we promote this stuff on YouTube, we've gotten folks to sit and watch 9 minutes of a show they weren't even looking for. So don't be obsessed with how long something should be. It's as long as it is entertaining, period.
So for those people, right, as a gateway drug to be as cool as CoolFire, to get to the point where somebody would say, hey, look, I need those resources. Talk to me, give us, a few ideas of what you would think somebody could sing it with their iPhone, with their assistant. You've seen, obviously food is a great gateway that, not only do you get the content, but theoretically you get that restaurant sharing your stuff, and there's hopefully some. So talk to me about some of those sort of techniques that, granular, that somebody who's sort of not ready for big time, but really wants to get started, you think might be a.
Yeah. And I would say, no matter what your resources, and let me say, I'm always willing to talk to anyone and just love riffing and coming up with ideas, whether you work with CoolFire or not. Great. Yeah. No, we're just so obsessed and pro video, and I love making new friends and just learning from each, case or friend. I would say, first off, there's so many resources too, right? Whether that be colleges and filmmaker folks around there who we're going to be passionate about. Local comedians is another way to get in and writing, and how do I humanize, punch it up? I would say find your format, right? And look at your playbook and what we're going to make, and pick a content day and say, we're going to think of this as our traditional marketing funnel. And I'm going to shoot 5, 6 videos that are top of funnel, a little more just kind of, again, top 5 things, or maybe something that's more off the wall, something that does have to do with food, something about, conference calls, something relatable and just easily digestible. Then let's show a little mid funnel. Let's show a little more expertise. Let's show we know what we're talking about. Wow, tapping into things like, you were talking about the Amber Heard cases, and just like legalese questions, FAQs. You can't go wrong with a lot of that stuff. And then even more bottom funnel, when do I call a lawyer, and maybe specifically talking about the culture, the folks around the firm, some of the results. But creativity is the best resource, and that's something that nobody can define for you. You can work with some creative folks, but the consistency too, creativity and the consistency, and saying, Daryl Isaac talks about that on stage there at the CEO LawyerCon, was all about, finding it, and then he hit upon it. But if whatever you can put in paid promotions, you're talking to Dennis a little bit about this, but it's like building organic audiences through inorganic methods, right? The digital side, it's like, we all hear the term, right? Let's go viral. We're going to go viral with this. Well, the way we got lawyers in front of folks was by paying on television. This wasn't some magic thing that happened. So those rules still apply. And like Dennis was talking about, just investing in that, even locally, and building up to that, putting that content out there, build, measure, pivot around it. But most of all, it's got to be sincere. It can't be something that you're faking, because to your point, people will sniff that out. So just leaning into who you are, what you do, or creating a spokesperson around for your law firm. Brown and Crouppen uses Tammy Holland a lot, and she has a fan base, right? And so I would say too to folks, do you know somebody? Is there an athlete? Is there a community advocate? They can be the face if you're saying like, hey, I'm not really, and then slowly associate with that law firm is another way around it. Animation is a great way to do it. We did Terry's Safety Squad. Ed has Ed versus Bathrooms that won these Emmys over here, which nobody thought law firm content could win an Emmy, but here we are next to all these, PBS and news organizations. So that's another way of just doing things that stick out. They're a little bit different, and trying all of that on digital, and then even uploading the 30-minute cut around it. So it's just making sure you're programming for each platform, natively cutting things, posting things from vertical to horizontal, but most of all, diving in and saying, we're going to do this for a year and see which one has the breakout, and making sure that all the way you're never losing the law and you're always asking for engagement.
My last question before I give you sort of a final word is something that I have struggled with conceptually, even on a social channel, and the idea of what is the channel. So, are you, when you have if, let's say you're starting with a digital, with a channel like a TikTok, Instagram, etc. If you have, today we're at a restaurant, tomorrow you're doing advice on what to do if you're in an accident. Third, you have that representative that's not you doing something entertaining. What is your best advice about keeping consistency? Because, look, the good idea about trying a bunch of different things, you see what sticks, but the downside is it's like a potpourri. You went deep on the bathrooms, that goes big.
Yeah.
If you go deep on something versus, does that need its own channel? Is it okay to mix that in? How do you sort of, if you have all these great ideas, but you don't want somebody to come and say, oh, that's just a law firm channel with random stuff. I struggle with this on the BluShark side.
I understand.
The BluShark channel. One day I'm doing SEO advice. The next day I have some girl dancing. And the third, I have a community group going out and doing the social justice thing. And the next day they're doing axe throwing. Like somebody might care about social justice, but they don't care about food. Like, how do you figure out what, do you have multiple channels? Do you have one? That's one of my struggles.
Yeah. And I would say the accountability, right? And delegating and making sure that there's someone that's keeping all this content accountable. And
well,
BCTV strategy.
I'm saying, but should you not be doing all these different things? Should you pick one or two, like food or like bathroom, and go deep?
I would.
Versus throwing all these different things out there. Have a theme.
I would. We were intentional about BCTV looking and saying, we're going to do something animated. We're doing things like, Tammy Holland show, Win the Day. And you're exactly right that at the end of the day, the winners, the ones that we went with, Tammy show evolved into a This Week with Tammy, more of a blog style, but it was 3 lawyers and Ed versus were the breakout. So not everybody could do that. So I do recommend picking 1 or 2, taking a quarter and saying, we're going to parallel path some of these, see which one sticks, what's in the
Are you doing them on the same channel, or are you doing them on separate channels? Here's the interview talk show, and here's the lawyers having lunch. Can you mix them into a channel? What's your thought on that?
You can mix them, but I would be advised like saying what works on Instagram, what works on TikTok. So if it was me, I would do the scrappy, let's call it the food show. And while I'm there filming the food show with beautiful cameras and it's looking good and the food is just food porn, right? It's looking delicious and we're getting that. Then I've also got a phone on set and I'm grabbing those TikToks because those need to be native. So, Tiger Talks is a show that's shot inside the studio. We have a nice set for him. We can make vertical cuts, and that, it's not, YouTube is more the primary.
You don't make the vertical cuts with your high-end cameras. You're just using the iPhone separately.
We have, but as we both know, that it has to feel native. It has to feel like, we purposely, when we film with the beautiful, red camera, we know we've spaced it off for the vertical. But I'm saying for TikTok, and you want to shoot that on that mobile phone. You want to shoot some behind the scenes of that show, pushing people to watch it over on YouTube or Facebook where it goes. But I would not force shows that don't look like they belong for the platform. And let's face it, for every rule, there's a rule to be broken. Exactly. And that's your job, to find out what is going to break something and be that happy accident. And that's the thing that everyone's looking for. When Ed Herman did his cereal video, who would have thought that would have been the breakout? How he's been, practicing law for, 20 years, but he's been eating cereal for 46. I mean, that became such a thing locally that everyone's coming up, oh, you're the cereal guy. And that leads to folks DMing him on Facebook after they've been into an accident, particularly younger people. So he's endeared himself, and we're scaling the feeling of, I've got a guy, I've got a gal. And that's what you're going for.
Hopefully proofing the juggernauts coming in because they have a connection to you, which can't be out.
100%. 100%. Yeah. So whatever it is, get started, get your content strategy. I'm always available to chat and inspire and full of ideas and rev it up. But it's critical right now as these formats are evolving. So none of it's the wrong answer. The only wrong answer is not doing anything.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been awesome. The energy and creativity is infectious. Makes me want to go out there and scout and take and again, and half of it, you see the sneaker in the background. To me, the Nike saying "just do it" is so it resonates so much because you can overthink this. And I have friends
100%
that overthink everything. Friends trying to like date in their 50s and they're like, overthinking each date. I'm just like, just go on a freaking date. Like, and I know it's sometimes harder to take your own advice.
Absolutely.
Just to do it.
Yeah. Law firms, lawyers, you're living in a bubble right now, and you are kings and queens of your kingdom. But there's a whole big world out there. And you've really got to say to yourself, what am I going to do to break out? They know me from the billboards, but how do they feel about me? Ed talks a lot about brand love. What do I stand for? That's the kind of stuff. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there just a little bit more, but make sure the right people are around you to do it in an incredible way, like CoolFire.
Well, thank you so much, Jeremy. This is awesome. Can't wait to break bread in some other amazing place like South Beach or Vegas.
That's right. And I'll show you some more breakdancing moves, Seth.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to the SEO Insider with Seth Price. Be sure to check back next week for fresh insights into building your brand's online presence. Episodes are available to stream directly on BluShark Digital's website.